Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Mass. We teach Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, mixed martial arts. We'll make your life fulfilling. We'll help you lose weight, get energized, feel terrific, meet new wonderful people. You'll join a tribe of positive, like-minded people interested in personal growth, if that's what you're interested in. And I'm here with Dan Robbins.
A lot of other good things, too. You just can't get into all of them.
There's so many good things. It's a cornucopia of it.
And we've never met anyone that joined the gym and regretted it.
We've never met anyone that's regretted it. I've met some that don't make it that long. You know, that happens.
Yeah.
But I would say nobody's ever regretted it. Yeah, that's a good point, Dan.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever regretted it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
How was your Halloween?
Non-existent.
Yeah. I think you get past a certain age, and once your kids don't trick or treat, it's over, right?
Yeah, and my son and I are like these fanatical jiu-jitsu monks. Our religion is jiu-jitsu, so we don't celebrate anything. We don't have a Christmas tree. We don't do Halloween.
So you frown upon other holidays, the non-jiu-jitsu holidays?
That's right. Yeah. They're an abomination. They're heretical.
So let me tell you something about Halloween that relates to
I love Halloween,
this
by the way.
podcast.
All right.
That I think, as we've said before, there are times where you and I take the advice that we give on this podcast to heart. Possibly being the only two people who do that, but we do, right? Like,
I think so. But I'm going to preempt you. My son Rory said, "Don't talk about the calendar anymore. You're driving me freaking crazy." But go ahead.
We're not.
Okay, just saying.
Yeah. So is he doing it?
No.
I don't know why. Is it wrong? Is it weird that now I'm tempted to talk about the calendar just to bug Rory? Is that an unnatural?
We'll get to it later.
Yeah. So here's my mental change. So lots of people come to the door trick or treating, right?
Okay.
So I used to always, every Halloween for decades, one thing that bugged me was like the teenagers coming to the door.
Okay.
Like I've had people come to the door almost every year, like in a full beard, like not as a costume.
What's the age cutoff that works for you?
You should probably stop when you get to high school, I think.
So what age is that? I don't even remember what high school
14
is.
or something.
14?
13.
13?
12. Like I think I'm sort of like
grade?
down 12, somewhere down there. You should stop. You're not a kid. Like if you're growing a full beard.
Yeah.
I always said, like, you know, get a job and buy your candy. Like, why am I giving you my candy? And it used to bug me, or like, here's another line. Like, if you're able to bear children or give birth, you shouldn't be trick-or-treating for candy.
People are trick-or-treating that.
Well, anyone with a full beard.
Oh.
Probably
they
is
can
able.
give birth? This is
they could either.
It's a whole new world, Dimitri.
If you could either give,
old-fashioned.
Yeah, don't judge, John. Maybe some people can,
right?
But like,
well, they can, yeah.
Either give birth
genders
or father a child. If you are able to be a parent, you should not be trick or treating. It's a holiday for little kids.
Okay,
and I don't think you should be trick or treating.
All right,
but anyway, I'm about to go back on that.
All right,
because I used to like every year I'd be like, these people. And this year, like, so we've been talking in the past about.
Now, did you have different candy options? So if you didn't like the person, you would give them like a cough drop or something.
Oh, I only give out apples and friendly, vegetables. Like we talk about on this program, people should be healthy.
Nice.
But no, I just say reach in and take whatever you want. So I always was bugged by these older people. I'm like, not huge. I wasn't having a fit, but I was always like eye rolling. And we've talked on this, like the way you put it is, don't get in touch with your feelings. Like everyone says, you should be in touch with your feelings. Or like there's value to like not being so in touch with your feelings. And we're putting it sort of in a joking way, but there's truth. The way we've also put it is, the more you can be like Mr. Spock, the better.
Mm.
And so after decades of like always, every part of every Halloween's rolling my eyes at the older kids that come by, I've taken to heart, honestly, what we've talked about. And I was like, what does it matter to me? these older kids coming to the door. Like, I
Right.
don't think, like, it matters nothing,
Nothing.
right? Like,
Affects your life, not at all.
why should I have any negative feelings? Why should I roll my eyes?
So true.
It matters to me not at all. And it actually worked. Like, 'cause there's this distinction too that we say, like, don't react emotionally. And I know there's a criticism. People will be like, well, I can't help it. Like, I get mad or and it's like, yeah, I know you can't always help it. But what's step one? Step one is at least thinking that you should be trying to change it, right? Like, at least.
Well, I think there's a feedback loop involved. So you get an initial reaction and an emotion, and then you can either feed into it or maybe or quiet it down and let it go or something, right?
Right. I actually, from just yesterday, I have probably a better example where I was on Route 1 just doing different chores. And it was hard, one of those crowded times of day, lots of cars coming. And so I kind of pulled out like in a small window. This truck's barreling down on me. And it couldn't have hit me if it wanted to. But sometimes when you pull out, like, the driver almost accelerates, like they're angry that you're pulling out.
And trying to send you a little message.
Yeah, or they're furious that they have to, like, momentarily take their foot off the gas.
Right.
And, like, they just can't stand that you pulled out in front of them.
You inconvenience them one second out of their life.
Exactly. So this truck accelerated, sort of barreled down on me, and then just gave me the air horn, like, really loud, like this loud air horn.
Kind of obnoxious.
Yeah. So I felt that surge of anger. And it's a parallel of what we were just talking about. Like, I pulled up there was a traffic light, and I was in the left lane. I was going to take a left, and he was in the right lane. So he pulled up next to me, and he's yelling at me out the window. Like,
really?
I can't hear. He's lost it. Some people, like, it's sort of the opposite.
And it's not like he had swerved his truck.
No.
Not like
it wasn't. It was
in
fine.
any danger.
The way I put it is, he couldn't have hit me if he wanted to. Like, if he tried to hit me,
where was this?
He couldn't have. On Route 1.
Where?
Near, like, Lambert's.
Yeah.
That's where I pulled out of there, and then we were at the light.
Area
We were at
too,
the
right?
light near Legacy Place, like.
Oh, and you're going uphill for Pete's sake.
Yeah. So, but people like to be furious, right?
Right.
Like, I don't want to jump stories, but I just remember, like, another time I was near BU, and there was a police officer, and he was, like, waving. He was controlling traffic, and I looked down for a second, and I guess he waved me on when I looked away. So I just glanced down, but I glanced up, but I hadn't seen him waving.
Yep.
And he had such a fit. It's like the opposite of what we're talking about. That
Dan,
of, like,
can I
controlling
say
your
something
emotions.
about this thing with the hand? So if I'm putting the hand out, stop, and I'm curling the hand to come, that doesn't look very different at all. You know what I mean? That's the thing that gets me. It's like I'm supposed to, like, completely know what that is in an instant. You know what I mean? That's not a good system,
It
right?
doesn't. Yeah.
They should have a big red and
Flag or
green
something,
signs or something, right? And they get furious if you didn't see my hand.
This guy had this, like, literally, he was practically jumping up and down. He was like, I can't do it, but he was literally like, so he was like,
he was gonna have a stroke, man.
Like, he's flailing his arms around and screaming, and he turned beet red. And I was just staring at him, like. So anyway, the cop, and I'll merge the stories here. The guy in the truck, ordinarily, my feeling is, it's not like I'd get out of the car or anything like that, stupid. But maybe I'd flip him off, or I'd be yelling back, or I'd be like, or just like, what? No, like, engage.
Yeah.
Or drive away feeling furious, or feeling like, this is what I should have said.
About strangling him.
Yeah,
or
maybe I should have just be, like, this is what I should have yelled, this is what I should have done. And I went, like, I can't totally say it's because of what we talk about on here, but I went almost like full psychopath, like, which is good in a good way. Like, I felt nothing. Like, he was screaming, and I just, like, usually I get angry back, and I was just staring at him like it was like a monkey in the zoo or something, like jumping up. I was just, like, observing him, just looking like, look at this guy yelling at me.
That's the ultimate move, though.
And I was just staring at him like, look at this guy. You know what I mean? Like, and it meant nothing to me. And I was able to drive away, and I just didn't, like, by the time I was a block away, I was thinking about something else. Whereas in the past, I was someone, I think a lot of people out there are someone that it sticks with you. You get angry, and you're like, you think about it, and you replay it in your mind, and you go, did I cut him off?
You told me a story where you did a similar thing. I think you were in Florida or something. You were crossing the street, and somebody beeped us up, Seattle, and you didn't even turn your head. You just kind of did a dismissive movement with your hand.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate alpha move.
He was honking at me.
Yeah.
I pointed at the walk sign like it was my walk, and I didn't look at him, and I just pointed at the walk sign and kept walking. So sometimes it works. Like
that's good.
My system is weird. Like I can get like a spike of adrenaline over like the littlest. I can get a spike of adrenaline like watching that happen on a TV show, like a reality TV show, sitting on my couch, and then when it happens to me, I feel like dead calm. You know what I mean? Like, so it's weird that way, but I like it when the person has because this is what you should strive for, right? People they shouldn't impact you. Whether it's the trick-or-treater that's too old, or like the trick-or-treater that grabs too much candy, or the truck driver that's yelling, or the police officer jumping up and down. It's way better, right? If you're like, this person doesn't affect me. Like, it just doesn't bother me.
Definitely. We have equanimity.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I mean, and again, I get that people are like, well, that's easy to say, but you get mad. And it's like, sure, but if you're not even trying, like you said, you're just going to, it's definitely going to be worse. You're going to let it play in your mind. It's going to get stronger and worse. At least a step in the right direction is to think, I don't want this person to affect me.
I think that's the ultimate martial arts mindset. What's the word that calls to my mind? Imperturbable, where nothing can disturb you. You know what I mean? You're just placid, and that's the ultimate for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, related to the gym, same thing, right? You shouldn't be letting people affect you, or shouldn't let the performance affect you.
Which is funny.
Is there any downside? Am I missing a downside to what I'm saying?
I'll tell you, there's a downside to everything. You know what the downside is? You miss out on the vicarious thrill of having a strong emotion, which I've noticed recently a lot of people like that. And I think that's why they like horror movies and Halloween. They want to be, scared, get the shit scared out of them, and nothing's really going to happen. So people like emotion.
I've thought of two things. So a quick one is, you also, if you're sort of more insecure, then it's hard. Like, then you're like, I let that truck driver punk me, and I didn't like. So if you yell back, you feel like I stood up to him. But I honestly don't care about that at all. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so I think some people are like, if you don't yell back at someone, it's like, oh, he made me look like, I was this pussy. Like he was yelling, and I didn't say anything back. But that one, I honestly,
I think the current science is your amygdala is a threat alert system. So somebody beeps a horn at you or something, boom, your amygdala fires. There's some threat perhaps, and then your prefrontal cortex takes in all the information and comes up with the story and says, oh, it's a real threat, it's not a threat, or something like this. So, how we interpret these threats, so-called threats, is very important. That's going to determine what our emotions are, and you're like, what's the big deal,
Yeah. So,
but when you first heard the beeping, the honking, you must get a little bit of a amygdala response. You must get a little like, whoa, what the hell is that,
A little. Like I said, for some reason I was in this dead mindset, like this psychopath mindset where, like, it's just sort of funny. I was picturing him like screaming and yelling, and if you could see like if I was hooked up to one of those hospital machines, like everything would have been dead. Exactly. Like dead steady, like no reaction at all as I looked at him. But here's another thing.
But there is something funny when somebody's going berserk over some trivial, stupid thing that you did that's like inconsequential.
Yeah. And actually that police officer, the way that ended, it was sort of funny too, because I made it work. Because it looked like he was also like sort of overweight, and sort of, it just didn't look that healthy. And he was screaming and yelling, turned red. And I gave him one of these, like as I drove past, I gave him like a settle down, like with like a smile on my face. I gave him like a smile. It was like, settle down, buddy, like with like a smile, and it sent him off the deep end. Like he was like, I was glad he didn't have a car, because I think he would have pulled me over. Like he was in the middle
of a few shots at you.
Yeah, just like I thought he was going to radio someone to pull me over. Like he just got so angry when I gave him like the chill out, that
poor
motion,
guy, huh?
And it was just like, I thought he was going to have a coronary. And I was like, I don't know, you need some time off or something. This was not a big deal.
You're aiming for a stroke.
For all the stress that we know, a lot of police officers like that, all the stressful situations, you're letting that get, you're letting the person that you waved and they waited a second and didn't go.
It's almost like a bad habit to get that upset about something trivial.
And so it's related to I don't know if this applies to the police officer. It might more likely apply to the truck driver. But what I found too is there are people out there that like, and there's different versions of them, but there's people that like conflict. They like it.
Yeah.
And it's related to what you said, I think, like liking that emotion.
Yeah.
But some people directly like the conflict. And I think, like, I had a friend that was sort of like that when I was young, and we would argue and argue, like in the dorm rooms in college, argue and battle. And he became a lawyer, which I think, you know, and he likes
must be
arguing,
very effective.
he
at
likes
that.
it.
Yeah.
But I ran into him. We grew apart. I ran into him, 10, 15 years later. And so we're, whatever, 30, early 30s, something like that. And he's the same way. And pretty soon, on the first night I'm with him, he starts one of these battles with me.
With you.
And I was like, I realized how much I changed, because I was like, I don't want any part of this. Like, I just don't want it. I don't like it. And I think some people like it. Like, they're screaming and yelling.
Part of his personality.
It's not bothering them in some way. It's not.
Yeah, they get something out of it. Yeah.
And then there's another version of just like people like, it's like in conflict, but that's like yelling and arguing. But what I'm picturing in my head is I helped my daughter move into an apartment in Boston, like on September 1st.
Okay.
So not that long ago, right?
But
it's one of these tiny little side streets. I kind of told you where she lives, right, in Bay Village, and they have like those little gas lamp streets, like they're really narrow. There's nowhere to park. It's hard to move in because there's nowhere to pull over. So
where is it?
Bay Village. It's like,
which one's Bay Village?
It's like
now?
3 blocks by 3 blocks. It's south of the Common, but north of Chinatown. Kind of like there's a little tiny area in there. It's like really quaint. It's like they film scenes for movies.
Like
on
the
there
South End, you mean?
It's called, it's its own place. But
It's called what? Bay Village?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it has like gas lamps and like cobblestone streets and stuff.
Nice.
But it's super crowded.
Yeah.
Like really hard. So I'm like, how in the world am I going to move her in? So there's kind of like an illegal spot, like on the end of the block, like don't park from here to the corner.
Okay.
But I'm like, I'm going to zip in here. We're going to just pull some stuff out,
And zip
put it on
out.
the sidewalk, and then I'll get out. So as I'm pulling in, I see one of these like extremely unpleasant looking women like staring at me. And I don't know if you know women that do this, or I guess there's some guys that do it, but I think usually more women that like, they're aggressive toward you with like a phony smile the whole time. And it's so maddening.
Like an aggressive smirk almost?
So it's sort of like, as I pull in, I see her looking, and I'm like, she's going to be a problem. And so I unroll the window, and she goes.
I went to Catholic school, Dan. There was a lot of nuns like that.
I can imagine. That's how I actually could picture like a nun.
Yeah.
So she has this smile, and she's like, you can't park there, right? Like with like a phony smile, but like being aggressive to me. And I'm like, I understand. I just need to, it's moving. There's nowhere else to park. I'm just going to throw some things out. And she's like, no, like you can't do that. Like keeping that phony smile.
She's some official of some sort?
No.
Government employee?
No, but that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
She liked it.
Yeah.
She liked the.
No.
Yeah.
Like she's telling you can't.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
No, actually, I physically can. It's
Yeah.
against the law, but I'm doing
This
it.
is one of those things, where it's like, I said,
feel free to write me a ticket. Oh, you don't have tickets?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
yeah. In the end,
too
it came
bad.
down to, it's sort of like when I said it's what it came down to. I'm like, well, I'm doing it. So
What are you going to do?
Yeah. What are you going to do? Like, and it was like, it throws them back. It's like the guy at the concert who's like, you have to sit down. And I'm like, well, I'm not. So.
Should she throw a bottle of urine at you? She sounds like an Antifa.
But what happened was I said something like, what is the problem with me just pulled over for 2 minutes to pull some of the larger items out of the car? And she goes, like with that smile, she goes, how many reasons do you want? And I'm like, so I go, one good one. I'll take one if it's good.
What's your best one?
Yeah. She goes, so then she starts, emergency vehicle, you could be in the way. And it's, something like this. And I'm like, you know what, if an emergency vehicle comes, but again, every bit that I interacted with her, I'm losing, I think, in retrospect. Because it's like, sometimes it's satisfying because you're like making them feel bad. You're kind of attacking back. But to our overall point that we've been talking about, she liked it. I think she knew it was September 1st when people move in. So she walked up and down the street.
Oh, so she's ready. This is her thing.
Yeah, she walked up and down the street yelling at everybody. And it's like.
Right, she's policing the neighborhood.
She likes it. And I'm like, why? I'm sort of getting, even if I'm.
It's a Barney Fife syndrome.
Even if I'm nailing her with things I'm saying, but it's sort of like. I'm kind of getting tense, and
yeah,
I should have. So then at the end, she wouldn't stop, and I just entered. I just started saying, I said, okay, thank you. And then whatever she said, I'd say thank you and just keep.
Oh, thank you. You
I
can go now.
Yeah, I just kept unloading the car going, thank you.
Mm-hmm,
Thanks.
mm-hmm.
She goes, you can't do that. You have to move. And I was like, thanks. Thank you. And I just kept saying that. And that is, I think, closer to what you should like. I'm not engaging with you. You like this. I don't like it. I'm not going to engage with you. I'm not going to feel any emotion about this whole thing. I'm not going to get angry. I'm going to do my thing and move on. And I think that's what we should all be aiming for. Exactly. Or again, would Mr. Spock be screaming back and forth with her?
He'd give her a neck pinch and
Exactly.
knock her out.
Maybe that's what I should have done. Just go full Mr. Spock. But you know what I mean? It's just like, analyze. Here's someone being unpleasant. She likes it. She likes confronting me. I'm not going to confront back. I'm going to try to feel nothing as best I can and go on with my day and do what I'm going to do anyway and just not escalate. Because there's a real problem. People escalate all the time, right? And one of the whole things that people say is good about jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or the gym or any gym, I always hear you get your aggression out in a controlled and friendly environment, right? But if you're doing that and then you're going out and you're getting screaming matches and getting in fights and escalating, it's like, well, what good was it then? Like, you know, if you're like, I got my aggression out and then I was aggressive the rest of the day too, then it's like, well, that's not really what you mean by getting your aggression out, right? It's supposed to be like you get it out at the gym, and this should enable you to some extent at being better at this stuff. Being like, I wrestled and fought at the gym. Now I can like sort of contain myself when I'm out of the gym. What do you think about that? You think that's accurate? You think it applies to the gym? And do you think it is actually?
I think it applies because, and I'll tell you why I know it applies. If I don't train for a few days, I fantasize about strangling people on the street. So yeah, I think it definitely does.
So you actually feel a difference outside of the gym?
Oh my God, yeah, definitely. And
what do you think about just striving for no emotion in these kind of environments?
I think it's good. I think it's hard, but I think it's good. I think you're a clever guy, so you have good tactics, just like saying thank you. When we were in Italy, you know, you go through some of these tourist areas and you get sort of confronted by a lot of peddlers and people who you just don't want to deal with.
Right.
So I just don't even talk to them. They try to talk to me and I just stare at them and look away and I don't even get involved. But occasionally I have to come up with some strategy because if you start addressing every person that tries to interact with you, you're just wasting your time. Like this woman, like, you actually owed her nothing. You know, you didn't even have to interact with her. So sometimes I did this one thing. We were at St. Peter's Basilica, I think, and some old guy comes up to me. I don't know what his gimmick was, but he certainly wasn't going to offer me anything. You know what I mean? I'm sure he was going to hit me up for money or something. And he says something like, "Are you American?" or whatever. And I do this thing where I go, message, like it's just like I make up Russian, yeah. And he gets confused. Then he starts saying, "Are you this? Are you Swedish? Yeah. Are you Bulgarian?" He starts doing all these things.
Up the language.
Yeah, and then he says something in Italian. Then I say monkey calamaria, which is like mangia calamari means eat calamari, but I said monkey calamaria. He gets confused, and I just walk away. Yeah, so it's like my double talk. Sometimes there's double talk people, and
you're amusing yourself.
I'm amusing myself and protecting myself from their interjecting themselves into my. There was 2 phrases I learned about double talk. Did I tell you this before? No. Amazingly effective. So, essentially, what double talk is you use real words, but that are nonsensical in a way that it has like a Jedi mind effect on people where they think you said something and they're trying to interpret what you said and they get a little confused. It's almost like hypnosis. So one of the phrases is there's a Milwaukee in the locker room. And so using the word locker room and Milwaukee, and for some reason it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't make sense and people get confused and it's like a place and a thing. And the other is I left the Rufus bag on the plane. And
wait, where did you hear these?
And I used to work with sales, and there was a sales manager who was a slick guy. old-timey guy, and he taught me this. Yeah. And I've used this on more than one occasion, Dan. Like one time, I think I was with a girlfriend, and we were trying to get in a nightclub, and it was like roped off, like nobody can come in. You can't come in, and you had to pay a thing. And I grabbed her, and I walked up to the guy, and I said, there's a Milwaukee in the locker room. I left my Rufus bag on the plane, and I kind of gesture into the thing, and he gets confused. He goes, okay, and he just lets us in. And I've done that on more than one occasion to get in free.
It is a Jedi mind trick.
Yeah, it is. And I swear
I'm just
to God.
picturing someone, though, being like, sorry, you left your what on the plane?
The Rufus bag on the plane. And they're like... you got to say it with conviction, like you know what you're talking about, and they like, oh, he left his something, and they don't want to feel stupid and say, I don't even know what a Rufus bag is. You know what I mean? So
also, the conviction. Anyone does anything with conviction, and this sounds like a weird, not to compare you to this psychopath mass murderer, but it's what jumps to mind.
Yeah,
which is there's a book, The Executioner Song, about Gary Gilmore.
Oh yeah, I read that back in the 80s and 90s.
He said like he used to routinely go and he never paid for his beer. He would just steal it, and he said it was about how you presented yourself. Like he'd walk in
to a liquor store.
Yeah, he'd walk in as if like, or maybe easier, maybe a convenience store or something like that, like a 7-Eleven, and he'd walk in and he'd picture in his head like that he was a guy like picking up a delivery of beer or something. So walk in with total conviction. Like pick up a crate and like walk out like, like with total conviction. Don't look around, don't look nervous, don't run. And he said 99 times out of 100 it worked just because he picked it up and walked out and presented himself in a way that people would stare right at him and be like, he must be a guy that's supposed to be taking that beer out for some reason. Like he must be a distributor, or must be
right.
The owner asked him to do it, or maybe he paid someone, or like. The way he's carrying himself is not the way someone stealing beer would carry himself. And I think it's the same thing with you, like what you're saying, where you're like, someone who's not supposed to be in this club doesn't do this. They there's certain things they say, certain ways they act.
Right.
And you just got them off their game, and they're like, he's acting like someone who's supposed to be let in.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I can end this whole thing by just letting him in.
Right.
So I think that works. You get people off their script, and they're like, I just want to get out of this.
Yeah. And you're requiring them to think more than they want to. And so there's two interpretations. They have to think real hard to figure out what's going on, or they'll just let you in.
Right.
And the default is not to think really hard, so they just let you in. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to walk out of a diamond store with, you know what I mean? Like at some point, someone will be like, it's worth it to me to have the conflict because that's very expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everything is a cost-benefit analysis. Like, what's it going to cost me to let this person, to confront this person, and you know what I mean, all of that. Yeah, definitely.
Right. So anyway, the theme here, though, is also dealing with people that like conflict and sort of how to address them and trying to do another Mr. Spock application where you're just, don't let him get to you as best as possible. Don't let him get to you.
I think it's good. I think, as a teacher, especially of kids, I always advise our coaches to not get angry. I think when you're getting angry, a lot of times you're losing power because the kids see you as like, oh, I'm getting this guy upset. I have influence over him,
Right.
And I think that's not the best approach. What I would always do with the kids, if they're doing something that I didn't like if they took their belt off and they were whipping it around their head or whipping some other kid, I would do this stealth thing where I would just kind of like creep up on them before they knew it. They'd turn around, I'm right in their face, and I'd go, yeah, we have a very special rule. We never do that. Like all serious, and then they would never do it again. Where if you yell and you go, hey, stop swinging that belt around, they'd be like, what? Don't do this. And, you'd get in a big pissing match with some 8-year-old.
Right.
And
then for competing, everyone knows, right? You hear that again and again for the MMA and jiu-jitsu and boxing. And, like, if you're mad, you're going to lose to the guy who keeps his composure. And
that's a great question, Dan. I've thought about this a lot. So what is the emotion? I was listening to a podcast this woman, Brooke Castillo. She's like a life coach or something. And she was talking about, I think, having a why for your goal. And then she was also talking about having an emotion, like how are you going to feel about your goal and achieving your goal or something like that. And it made me think, so what's the emotion I want to have when I compete in jiu-jitsu? And I kick around all different ones. I think, I just want to be grateful to be there, have gratitude and serenity. And I think that might be put you in too passive a
Too
state,
serene?
maybe. Yeah. So then when we were in Italy, we had a couple guys that sort of like, I don't know if I probably mentioned this, that like didn't show up or dropped out of the competition. And then one guy, after we stayed there all day, we left at like 5:30. We were there from like 8:30 to 5:30. We went and had dinner, and this guy snuck in and
While you
showed
were at
up.
dinner.
Yeah. And that got me really annoyed. Like when I found out about it, I was like,
I don't think you said that on the podcast. It was he snuck in and then you had to, like, everyone else got a forfeit. Like, he waited till everyone left.
Till everyone left. So he wins and
ran
shows
in,
up
said
as me
forfeit,
losing
gets
to
the win.
him.
Yeah.
That I forfeited because I wasn't there. And that kind of pisses me off. And I was a little annoyed. And then that night, when I was trying to sleep, I got super annoyed. While I was struggling to sleep, I got hardly any sleep in Italy. But then I was annoyed when I went to compete. And I think that might not be a bad attitude to have competing in combat sports, is to be a little annoyed. You know what I mean? Not angry where you're out of control. You know what I mean? Like a mild negative emotion. What do you think?
Yeah. I always thought some sort of aggression, but not anger. Aggression without anger, right? Or sort of like, I'm coming for you. It's all tied into saying play your game, implement your game plan, implement your will. And I think if you have like that, what you're calling irritation or annoyed,
the other way
it's sort of like, I'm coming for you. And
I think so.
You know, like,
I think the other way to look at it, without, I don't want to make this sound the wrong way, is you can look at it, there's a predator and there's a prey. And you want to be the predator animal, not the prey animal. And it's very different mindsets and psychology and the way the nervous systems work there.
I've heard that. I don't know if this way, I've heard that for stand-up, for boxing, where it was like, always think you're coming to get them. Like, you're almost even in the way your feet are set, like almost like coming forward. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, not totally, of course. There's a lot of people, counter punches and all this, but it's sort of like, have in your head, you're coming to hit them. Yeah. Because I don't always, you know, like next thing you know, you're sort of covering up, or you're like, say, they're coming for me. And they're like, try to keep in your head, even when they're coming at you, like, I'm going to slip this.
You're the hunter.
And I'm going to get him. Yeah. Yeah. So I've heard that for stand up. Is that, do you hear that universally? Like,
I don't hear it universally, but I think that's probably the approach that's the most effective. And then even if you're losing, you're like, I don't care. I'm just waiting for my moment, and I'm going to take this person down. You know what I mean?
I think this is all of a piece. If you're the hunter, if you're the lion, and that's the gazelle, it's like the guy in the truck. If the gazelle's flipping out and yelling at the lion's just watching them, right? Like,
they are so
the lion's
placid,
not
aren't
like
they?
the lion's not like, oh yeah, gazelle, and like coming like with a comeback, and it's just like,
I just saw this little video, this little GIF on Twitter this morning, Dan. It's funny you should say that. And it was a water buffalo and an African lion with the big mane, a male. And he was like, the lion was standing there, and the water buffalo just charges him and just like goes to bam, headbutt him. And at the last moment, the lion like falls over and gets a hold of the water buffalo's neck as he's falling underneath him, and just puts him on his back, and it's just like, it's over. Yeah. And the video ended there, but it looked like he was just gonna succumb to the lion's bite. But the lion was just so crafty, like he was totally calm, and it was a counterpunch. He like fell, got out of the way of the charge, but just enough that he could latch onto the throat. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's really astounding.
Right, and they're doing it in a game of life and death. You know, we're doing it in like a competition, or a guy yelling at you at the
a little bit more at stake.
Yeah. But again, he didn't butt heads with the buffalo. You know, it's sort of like just stayed calm, and
he didn't get upset about it.
Yeah,
yeah. That kind of anger it kind of goes hand in hand with a certain level of consciousness, I guess. Right? I bet primates get a little angry. Do Do all animals get angry? Mammals get angry? I don't know.
I never thought. I guess so. Right?
Dogs can get angry, right?
Yeah. It's hard to say. They get aggressive.
Aggressive, right?
Aggressive,
Yeah.
is it different than angry? It seems it's the same.
Well, I think they've done a lot of studies with chimps and other primates where if they view some injustice, they get pissed off. Like,
Yeah.
if the other chimp, you're giving him chocolate and he's only getting like
Carrots
or something, he'll freak out and get pissed off. Yeah. That I would characterize that as anger, right?
Yeah. So how to deal with anger. Is this all of a piece? Or is it?
I got angry. One of the last times I got angry, my son cracks me up because he tells me when I'm getting angry, is I got some rubber flooring installed in our academy, and it was while I was away. I think it was when I was in Vegas, and they kind of screwed it up. Like, they let a part of the floor bare, concrete, and I was like, and I got so pissed off, you know what I mean? It was like one of those things I knew it was going to happen. And then I called the guy, and he's trying to give me some song and dance. And I was pissed off, man. And I was glad I was pissed off because I knew I was going to get it fixed.
Yeah.
But and then part of me was enjoying being that
Yeah.
pissed off, but it's just not good.
I would say that you are reminding me there are a couple good things about being pissed off. One
Yeah.
is sometimes it gets results objectively. Sometimes, because I'm thinking
It
now,
does.
like I got work done on my house, and sometimes if I get really angry, then you get people like, all right, I'll fix it. You know what I mean? Or like, and if you're not angry, they won't. And if you're Mr. Spock, they won't. You
They
know what I
won't.
mean?
Yeah, most people
Mr.
got
Spock will not get that extra piece of the roofing redone. Like,
no. They
'cause they're
need to
just-
hear you pissed off.
and then they go, all right, like they fold. So that it has its use for that. If you can really,
I paid for this rubber flooring in July.
Mhm.
They didn't get around to installing it until late August when I was. And here's the thing: I said to the guy, "Could you come out and look at the space?" He goes, "No." Can you just measure it and tell me? And I'm like, I measured it and told him. And then the installation guy, who was a different guy, he sends me a text. He goes, "Oh, I popped in one day and I looked at the space." I'm like, "You popped in? Why didn't you tell me you were going to pop
Yeah.
in? And I could have popped over and met you and told you exactly what I want, but you didn't."
Yeah.
So that was a complete waste of time. And then they screwed it up. So
Right.
then the guy, and I just reamed the guy. And he's like, "All right, we'll come back and we'll fix that spot." And he goes, "We can maybe come back next Thursday or something." And I'm like, "Okay." And then next Thursday comes along and he sends me an email and he goes, "Yeah, we can't come, but we'll get it in October as originally planned." So
Yeah.
I'm like, as
Was it-
originally planned? In what universe was that the original plan? Like, if he didn't put that phrase in, I would have been fine, but I went berserk again.
He was trying to plant it in your head that was the original plan, or
I
something.
guess he was trying to buffalo me, and
Yeah.
it just pissed me off even more. And I'm getting mad just retelling the story.
But
it's
like we
all
said,
good.
you can get results by yelling at someone sometimes or getting angry.
Yeah.
So there's that, and there's one other thing that just reminded me, which is, and you sort of said it there, like it can feel, if you're in an awkward spot, like you're saying you didn't get this done, and he's like, I did. It feels better to be angry than to feel awkward, by far. Do you know what I mean? Like, so if you're like having some sort of awkward misunderstanding or with someone or disagreement, it feels better when you're angry at them. Like I was saying, I think
What
I
do you
told
mean
you
it feels better?
but it feels better to be angry than to feel awkward. So I'll give you an example. I think I told you the story where I had a neighbor that was like, I'm going to redo this fence on our property.
This is an awesome story.
Yeah. So it was like, I'm going to redo the fence. And the fence, it was broken down. It had been there 50 years. So to me, the thing you do is you put the fence in the same spot, like where it's been for 50 years.
That's would occur to me to do
But
that.
the neighbor was like, I think my property is actually a little more toward your house. Like, more of the yard is his than where the fence was. Like a few feet, like 2 feet.
What's he going to drill for oil?
So I
in a
sort of
few
felt
feet?
like, all right, like just, you should probably just leave it at it. But I felt like, all right, you want to move it over 2 feet. That's fine. And then the guy who's putting up the fence actually rang my doorbell and was like, hey, do you know where this neighbor's asking me to put the fence? I'm like, and so I came out and the neighbor's
So the
there.
guy who's
Yeah.
hired by the neighbor,
Yeah, he felt he was like, this is
He
so
felt
outrageous.
so crazy. It was so outrageous. He had to check with you.
Yeah, he was like, you should know.
Which is smart because he knew he's going to be back dealing with the
after I
neighbor
knocked down the
feud
fence
and
and,
having to move the fence again, right?
Yeah. So then the neighbor, there's so like 6 feet out from the fence or 10 feet out, there's like this big rock. And my neighbor was like, oh, so this rock is in the way of where the fence is going to go. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like what? Like, how is that rock in the way? Like, he was going to put the fence like 12 feet over.
Wow.
Onto my, like, the middle of my lawn. Like, it was, and I was like, wait, that's not anywhere. How do you figure that's your property? Like, but he's really nice. And so it felt really awkward. I felt like somehow it didn't get resolved at that time.
He's nice, you say?
Yeah.
I don't think he's nice. I think he was introverted.
Well, in general, we had been.
Is he introverted?
Pretty much. We had pretty well got along. In any case, for
but
years.
you hadn't had any conflict
yeah,
yet. Yeah.
And then, so like, I forgot now, but like a couple weeks go by, and then I'm like, oh, the fence guy's here. And I felt so, like, at first I was like, this is so awkward, like, that I'm going to have to go out there and be like, but I got angry. So this is the point I was making. Once I was like, you know what? This is real crap that he's saying to put this. Why is he putting me in this spot to have to, like, argue about the stupid fence where it's been there? And I got angry, and then I feel good. Like, you know what I mean? Then I'm like,
energized.
Yeah. Then you just walk out like, yeah, I'm pissed off. And then you can walk right up and be like, look, the fence isn't going here, and I don't care if we're in a feud, and I don't care if you're mad, and I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it feels good. It feels much worse to be standing there going, yeah, I think the fence should really be, I think the property line.
Well, I think that's the purpose of anger is if you're getting some injustice foisted upon you is to prevent it and make the other party feel guilty and make the other party capitulate. That's what it's all about. Yeah.
But it's wasted for like yelling at the guy in the truck that like as soon as that light turns green,
that's a good point,
it's going to go the other way and you're going to go this way. And so it's being misapplied in a way. It's like it's
vicarious.
Wasted.
There's no benefit in
or
that.
Me getting mad at the old teenagers trick-or-treating. It's wasted. Like there's no that's more annoyed than angry, but like
there's no upside to that. Yeah.
You're wasting it.
Definitely.
So there's room for it, but I think most of the time it's applied. You're better off deadening it if you can, being like, this is a waste of time. And
I think the only time is when there's a legitimate conflict to be resolved that's going to have a material effect on you one way or the other. Somebody's going to put a fence through your lawn or something like that. That's when you got to put your foot down, right?
Yeah, then you have to step up, right?
People are so funny. The guy's going to put a fence in the middle of your lawn, right? So then he puts it back where it's supposed to be.
So what actually happened is when I came out charging, like I came out really angry. Yeah. His wife was there, who was always really nice, really good neighbor. And I came out like all ready for battle. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, so, about the fence being over here. And she was like, what? My husband said it was going to go there? She's like, no. That's like all the way on your. She was like, no, that's all the way on your lawn. That's crazy. That's of course it's not going to go there. We're going to put it, and they put it like way over, pretty much where she was. She instructed to have it put in pretty much where it was. So it all diffused.
So then that pisses you off even more because you're like, so you're okay with this, but you were asking for this. You know what I mean?
I don't know what
it
happened.
Showed you that the guy's just a maniac. He's a disingenuous wacko. He's a
I don't know what happened.
All I know is
like she didn't seem to
imperialist.
She didn't seem to have any knowledge that it was going to be put in all the way on my lawn. So, yeah, I think he was just trying to land. It was a land grab.
He was playing Risk.
He was. He was
invading Australia.
It was like an invasion. Yeah.
What a wacko!
I had to repel an invasion. So there's a reason for anger there if you're repelling.
Yeah.
Like someone taking your land.
Definitely. Yeah. That's something to get mad about. What a wacko. Very funny. So what did we talk about? We talked about double talk, anger. I can't even remember where we started.
It's all conflict management. All versions of.
Yeah, it's so tricky, isn't it?
All versions of when and how to apply anger.
What I also noticed, Dan, I think I'm an agreeable person. But my son says sometimes I get fired up, which is probably good. You can set precedences also. So in other words, if the guy said, "Hey, let's do this with the fence," and you didn't complain, next thing you know,
another fence is.
Yeah, he's going to be saying you half of your house belongs to him or something. You really can set that where people need to know your boundaries, right? Otherwise, they just keep pushing until they find it.
So you started that sentence by saying you think you're an agreeable person.
Yeah. So what I do sometimes is somebody asks me for something. Even if I know I'm going to concede to it because it's not that big of a deal in the academy, sometimes I'll just say, let me think about it and I'll get back to you. Just because I feel like if you just knee-jerk agree to everything somebody wants from you, they just go, oh, he's freaking easy. And then there's no end to it,
And the flip side of that, even worse, is they won't appreciate it either.
They don't. You're absolutely right.
And then the one time that you're like, then they'll ask more and more, and then this applies to all our lives. I think they ask more and more, and then the one time you're like, you put your foot down, they're furious. They're like, what? You know what I mean? They don't appreciate all the things you did.
This guy wants me to pay dues to belong here. You know
right?
What I mean? Yeah. They can take it to the point of complete absurdity. I had a crazy woman. I must have told you about her. Who had her son training with us. And she was a wacko disagreeable. And long story short, she went from, she was, just a single parent. And I'm like, yeah, I am too. So she got a discount, and then she couldn't pay a month here, couldn't pay a month there. By the end of it, she was expecting me to pay her. You know what I mean? There's no end to it.
She's actually getting angry if you ask dues to be paid.
At the end, she wanted me to pick her kid up from like Franklin or something, some town, and I'm like, "You're insane! No, I cannot do that."
And she's probably angry, right? Like, or felt like aggrieved.
They convince themselves that they're justified in all that they're getting. Yeah. And their kid was a wonderful kid. I don't know whatever happened to them, unfortunately, but that's the problem. Sometimes it's the parents that are just too much to deal with. Yeah, unfortunately, can't help everybody. But
so you always describe people as agreeable or disagreeable. What exactly? I feel like you have a definition in mind.
I don't. There is a definition, Dan. So that's part of the Big Five personality inventory. So the Big Five personality is, they use an acronym OCEAN, OCEAN. O is openness. So somebody's very open, would get tattoos and study martial arts and travel, who knows. Somebody closed would, have their top.
Stay in their box.
Yeah, exactly. Conscientiousness is essentially attention to detail. So somebody's orderly, they're conscientious, that type of thing. Pays their bills on time, they're conscientious. E is extroversion, introversion, A, agreeableness. So essentially agreeableness means if you're, this is all, according to the population, it's all kind of out on a bell curve. So if your average agreeableness, let's say we're having a pizza that has 8 slices, you would say, I'll have 4, and John, you can have 4, your average agreeableness. If you're overly agreeable, you'd say, you know what, you have 5, I'm not as hungry as you. Or you could say, you know what, you just have it all. I ate yesterday or something. And then the people who are disagreeable are on the other side of it. They're like, I should have 6 of these 8 slices. I don't even know why I'm giving you any of it anyways, and so forth. So the current science says these things are pretty immutable. It's what we're genetically gifted with, these different character traits, personality traits. And
so what would be a stereotypical disagreeable person that you deal with in any way at the gym, for example, like a disagreeable parent or disagreeable
They complain
student?
about everything. It costs too much. The walls are the wrong color. The kid's not getting enough attention. The kid's not learning fast enough. There's not enough, everything.
Right.
They just have a negative spin on it. I've learned,
It's similar to unappreciative, right? Like they don't appreciate anything. Yeah.
It's on a bell curve. So most people are average. Some are, half of the people are more agreeable than most. The other half are more disagreeable than most. And then there's outliers. So you get those rare outliers who are just maniacs who are disagreeable, and those blessed saints who are outliers agreeable. They're great. But now I can spot the outlier disagreeable types. And the solution, you know what the solution for them is, Dan?
To keep them out of your life.
Yeah. Invest as little time and energy in them as possible, because it goes nowhere. It works against you, unfortunately. And they're really so. And then ocean, OCEA, and the last one N is it's called neuroticism, and it doesn't mean that you're Woody Allen. People, they have the technical meaning of neuroticism is emotional variability. So if somebody gets very high and very low, that means they're higher in neuroticism and so forth. But the current science says we have this personality, and then according to the situation, our behavior expresses itself. So in other words, if I was a very disagreeable person, if I can get away with it, I'll act really shitty, right? But I could be a very disagreeable person, and if I'm Mike Tyson's prison cellmate, I'll probably act fairly agreeable. And people are like, he's a pretty agreeable guy. Yeah, it's because I know I can't get away with it, because this guy will kill me. But take that same person, and now he's,
has opportunity.
If he has the upper hand, the power, all of a sudden he's going to act like the tough guy, the bad guy, or whatever.
Right.
So that's the other thing I learned is not all disagreeable people are obviously disagreeable, because some of them are so introverted. If somebody's very quiet, we assume that they're agreeable. I don't know why we do. We make a lot of assumptions. Somebody's very quiet, we might assume that they have a heart of gold, they're kind, and they're compassionate, and they're sensitive. And it's like, no, they're just introverted. They just don't talk a lot. They don't socialize a lot.
Right. I used to know that about seeming wise. If you're sort of quiet, I remember that in college. All the way back in college, I noticed that, where it was like someone's sort of quiet and soft-spoken. It was like you can take him seriously. Like, if you say much better points, but you're sort of yelling them, smiling with a beer in your hand, everyone's gonna be like, the guy's an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, because of the presentation.
Yeah.
And that, but like, to your point, people are just fooled or confused by presentation.
Confused by some of those things.
Yeah,
definitely. But disagreeable people, they're the worst, and there's no solving them. I just watched this documentary called Rolling Thunder about Bob Dylan. Did you see it? It's on Netflix. Yeah. It's pretty good. And so he did this Rolling Thunder review, this concert tour, I think 1975 maybe. And one of his first stop was Memorial Hall in Plymouth, where they have the Cage Titan MMA events. And they show him in the hall, and the place hasn't changed in 40 years. It looks exactly the same. It's pretty cool. But he was an interesting guy to me because he didn't answer any direct questions, and he was smart enough at a young age. He was like in his early 20s, where he would, write these kind of interesting songs and music, and never be that direct to anybody. So people just projected whatever they wanted to onto him, and
never explain the song.
He never explained anything. And if you asked him a direct question, he wouldn't answer it about anything. So he just developed this aura of being a genius, and very interesting, I think.
I know, it's effective too. I might have. There was a song, I still remember this from a long time ago, like a '90s song, and the lyrics were, it's like, I think it was a one-hit wonder, I think, and it went, like in the chorus, it was, something like, she thinks she missed the train to Mars, she's out back counting stars. And I remember the rock star guy, I think he was on Howard Stern. Howard Stern was like, what do you mean by those lyrics? And the guy was like, what do you think I meant by the lyrics? And he was like, I'll tell you what I think you mean. It's like, everyone thinks they can be big, or, a celebrity, or very, like, they could be something bigger than they are, but, blah, 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 blah. And he had his whole interpretation. And the guy who wrote the song is like, that's interesting. I mean, it's not really what I was thinking. And he ended up getting him to say what the lyrics were inspired by. And he was like, I knew this woman. She came into the party and she said, "I think I missed the train to Mars." Like it was a literal quote. Like she was like, because I think she was high, and then she went out back and started counting the stars. And it was like, so you meant nothing. Like
it was a literal experience.
Yeah, it was like you meant nothing.
That's classic.
And so it's a perfect, like if he just kept quiet, it might be like, oh, the guy he's on to something here. He's some human condition. But the truth was, he talked through his lyrics, and it was like, oh, you didn't do anything. Like, and I imagine, I can't say that obviously true of Bob Dylan, but it can't help him to talk through how he came up with his lyrics. You know what I mean? It's not going to help if he's like, well, like a Rolling Stone, it means this and this. No one's going to be like, oh, that's so much deeper and better than I thought. They're going to be
you're
like,
right.
They're going to be like, oh,
well,
that's it.
I think it is better when it's ambiguous and unclear.
Yeah.
A lot of his songs are pretty straightforward, or not pretty, but just straightforward aspects of it. You know what I mean? That Reuben Hurricane Carter song and these other ones. But enough of the lyrics are obtuse. It makes it more interesting. And it kind of brings me back to what we were saying, where people like emotion. And I think people like emotion. They like to get fired up, and they don't necessarily want clarity. They don't want things completely spelled out.
Right.
It's more interesting for them. It's visceral, right? It's vicarious when you're having some emotion and some feeling and getting all fired up.
Right. And like you said, almost detracts if Nirvana's like that too. They put together strings of nonsense words, and a lot of their songs have a lot of nonsense in them.
Yeah.
And it speaks to people a lot of times more than something that's understandable.
I totally think so. Definitely. Yeah. We see it today. People like to get fired up. It's energizing. It's empowering to get riled up, right?
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I think we come to the end of our podcast here, man.
This was but what about,
what?
We should talk with Rory about the calendar a little bit. But maybe we could do that off air. We could just text him.
We'll text him about the calendar. I'm sorry, Rory, we didn't get to speak about the calendar.
We could just have a Rory calendar segment every show now.
You're still using the calendar, though.
I am.
Right? And how is your weight? Okay?
Yeah, it's all right. I've been like a little, like I said, I'm not too fired up about it. Like,
right.
I've been kind of lazy lately, but I'll get back.
Get back on it because you have the calendar.
Because of the calendar. Exactly.
Awesome. And we got a new review, Somebody gave us a review, and it was very positive.
Someone you know? Or
No, they didn't. I couldn't tell who the heck it was. But thank you very much. And if anybody would write us a review, we would certainly appreciate it. And please tell your friends to listen to us.
Definitely appreciate it.
And we'll talk to you all next week.